Today, we are cracking open the doors to the modern warehouse and taking a look at its brain, the powerful technology that keeps everything moving. We're talking about the Warehouse Management System, or WMS, and how this digital command center is the key to taming the absolute chaos of today's supply chains. And let's just start with this. This quote from a year in review on Reddit of all places just nails the reality that every single logistics professional is living through right now. Predictability? Yeah, that's a luxury we don't have anymore. Today, it is all about being resilient and ready to react.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the massive pressures crushing the supply chain. Then we'll get into what a WMS actually is. After that, we'll pop the hood and see how one is built, look at some real-world numbers to prove it works, and finally, take a peek at the automated future.
All right, first up, let's talk about the pressure. And I mean immense pressure. Honestly, the last year or so has felt like a masterclass in disruption, thanks to this perfect storm of economic and political chaos that has basically torn up the old logistics playbook. It really kicked off with these huge, sweeping tariffs. We're talking a baseline 10% tariff on almost everything coming into the US, with some rates jumping to a crazy 50%. For importers, especially the smaller businesses that can't just absorb those costs, it was absolute chaos.
As if that wasn't enough, you had the constant threat of port strikes hanging over the East and Gulf coasts. Now, a full-blown strike was avoided, thankfully, but the risk alone was enough to make companies permanently shift 10 to 15% of their cargo back to the West Coast. Port diversification is no longer a nice-to-have, it's a must-do.
And the cherry on top of all this? A brutal Great Freight Recession. There was just way too much capacity and rock-bottom rates, and it purged the market. A lot of companies went under, and it proved that just being efficient wasn't enough anymore. You had to be financially bulletproof to survive. So when you're facing all that external chaos, what can you actually do? Well, businesses are forced to look inward, to focus on the one thing they can control, what happens inside the four walls of their warehouse. And the key to unlocking that control? It's a warehouse management system. So what is a WMS, really? Put simply, it's the brain of the entire operation. It's the software that orchestrates every single move, every process, every item, from the second goods arrive at your dock to the moment they get shipped out the door.
And the difference it makes is just night and day. On the left, you've got the old way, right? Paper pick lists, people running around confused, tons of errors, and you basically have no idea where anything is. On the right, that's the WMS world. It's all about digital control, near-perfect accuracy, and seeing everything in real time. It's order versus chaos.
You know, a WMS isn't just one piece of software. It's a whole suite of powerful tools. It handles everything. It manages the inbound flow, intelligently keeps track of every single piece of inventory, optimizes all your outbound picking and shipping. It even conducts the complex dance between your human workers and any robots you have. It even looks outside the building to manage the truck yard and gives you all the data you need to make smarter, faster decisions. Okay, so how do you actually build a system like this? Getting a WMS up and running is so much more than just clicking install. It's a huge strategic project. You have to design your processes, configure the system to match them perfectly, test everything until it's flawless, and then you can implement it in a live warehouse. This here breaks down the key technical layers that architects have to work with. Think of it like this. Way down at the bottom, you have the core engine. This is the powerhouse for all the data and logic. Then you have the integration layer, which is like the universal translator, connecting your WMS to all your other business systems. On top of that is the user interface, which is where you design the actual screens and workflows your team uses every day. And finally, the really cool part, the execution layer, where AI orchestrates everything and everyone. Building it in layers like this is so important because it means the whole system is flexible. All that tech sounds impressive for sure, but what does it actually do for a business? What's the real-world impact? Well, let's look at the actual numbers from a few different companies that were facing some very different problems. First up, let's talk about a classic challenge, just getting more stuff done. Excel Logistics is a huge provider down in Mexico, running over 19 distribution centers, and they just needed to boost their output to keep up with the market. So what happened after they put in their WMS? A massive 35% increase in workforce productivity. That's huge! They streamlined everything from receiving to dispatch, which cut down wait times and just made the whole operation more efficient. Okay, but what if your main challenge isn't just speed, but being absolutely 100% precise? Kenco is a major third-party logistics company, and they handle incredibly complex and regulated products for the healthcare industry. For them, one mistake is not an option. By using a WMS to optimize their workflows, they doubled their replenishment speed. For their clients in healthcare, getting critical products into the supply chain twice as fast is an absolute game changer. And for our last case study, let's talk about the challenge of just insane growth. Seedcomb Food in Vietnam was managing inventory for over 70 supermarkets in a market that was just exploding. They needed to go digital, and they needed to do it yesterday. The story here is all about speed of implementation. They went from 0 to a fully live WMS in just 2 months. 2. That's incredible. It gave them instant visibility into their data and let them accelerate their fulfillment right when they needed it most. And look, these case studies aren't just lucky one-offs. This is what a well-executed WMS project delivers across the board. We're talking about a 50% jump in throughput, a 50% cut in fulfillment costs, and getting your inventory accuracy to nearly 100%. These aren't just improvements, these are transformational numbers. So that brings us to the future, because the WMS itself isn't standing still, it's evolving. It's going from being a simple system that just tells you what already happened to becoming an intelligent predictive engine that helps you decide what to do next. And this is what that future looks like. You've got AI agents giving supervisors real-time advice. The system treats humans and robots like one unified workforce. It uses machine learning to predict how many people you'll need for next week's rush. It's constantly rethinking where products should be stored, and it's reprioritizing tasks on the fly to make sure you never miss a deadline. This isn't sci-fi anymore. This is where warehouse operations are headed. And all of this leaves us with one final critical thought. In a world that's constantly being disrupted, a warehouse can't just be a passive building that stores stuff anymore. It has to be an active, intelligent, agile hub for your entire supply chain. So the real question you have to ask yourself is your operation just storing goods, or is it actually ready to compete?